is going on YouTube? Thank y'all for checking in to once again another video. In today's video, we're looking at the very cheapest base package that you can get. That's right, guys. Parker the Basehead here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video. Now again, in this video, we're looking at the cheapest base package that you can get. Now what I mean by base package, I mean a full setup that you can buy in just one set. That of course means you're going to get a sub, you're going to get a box, you're going to get an amp, and you're going to get the wire kit all in one package. Now, this excludes things like powered subwoofers, which are where you have your box, your sub, and your amp all built into one unit. So that's the criteria for my video. Now, when I was looking online, there's of course a bunch of options with that kind of thing, especially on eBay. There's all kinds of different mismatches. You can get one sub, one kind of amp, one kind of wiring kit, all that stuff. But again, guys, we were looking for the very cheapest option, and after doing a bunch of research, for $119, the very cheapest base combo package that you can get is the Rockville RV10. Now, this setup, of course, as I stated, has a 10-inch sub, and I believe a ported box, has a separate amplifier, and comes with a full wiring kit. So let's open this thing up and check it out. Now, quick disclaimer, guys. I know a lot of people don't like Rockville. Hey, that's okay. You're allowed to like and not like what you want. Once again, guys, the point of this video was not to say this is a good setup. The point of it was to see how good or how bad is the cheapest setup in this criteria. Anyway, let's get to checking this thing out. Everything comes in this one box. We'll say it's pretty light. A lot lighter than I would expect it to be. First off, guys, we've got the Rockville RVA 600 watt amp. Now, it says this is a 4-ohm 600 watt amp, but looking back here at the back, guys, it says power output 200 watts RMS at 4 ohms. Next up, we get the full wire kit. We'll show you all this here in a second. And last but not least, y'all, we get the sub in the ported box. Little 10-inch guy. Of course, I have our ports down here facing the bottom. Pretty light, though, which for some circumstances is nice. Well, let's get a closer look up at this stuff. Real quick, guys, obviously this video not sponsored by Rockville. We are, of course, sponsored by Alfred Audio, the owners of Deaf Bonts and Avatar. Super quick word from them, then back to the video. Huge shout out to Deaf Bonts for sponsoring this video. Y'all, if you want some incredible quality equipment in any price range for any build, y'all gotta go check out Alfred Audio. Of course, they have tons of awesome stuff from Deaf Bonts and, of course, Avatar. Now, I have used a ton of their stuff. Really like them. One, I put them through some absolutely brutal tests, and they make them through just fine. They sound good. Like I said, the guys, they got something for every build and every price range. Whether you need a giant 20K amplifier for your setup, or you need a little micro amp smaller than the size of your hand, they have you covered. Now, this amp is from their new lineup. Of course, the MLA XS line. If you want to go check out their full new lineup of amps, guys, I will have a link in the description below to Alfred Audio. Go check them out. They have several new lines. Really cool. Getting rid of some of their old stuff, coming out with new and improved stuff. I love seeing that, and I hope y'all will too, guys. So go check them out. Link in the description below. Once again, thank you to Alfred Audio. Now back to the video. Here's the kit, guys. Let's start with the wiring kit that you get. First off, you get 17 feet of RCA cables. They do say these are pure copper cables. You get 17 foot of 8-gauge wire. That being said, this is definitely not oxygen-free copper wire. I think you get 2 feet of ground wire, 7 feet of loom for the wire, 17 feet of your remote wire, 17 feet of speaker wire. You get one of these fuse holders with the circular fuses. You get a 50 amp fuse. And they said these things are gold-plated, for whatever that's worth. You also get zip ties, you get little terminals, and little bits of black and red shielding. Alright, now right off the bat, one thing I don't like about this setup is that this thing's advertised as a 500 watt setup. It says so all over the website, on all the listings. That being said, when you look into it, the box says it's only 200 watts RMS. Then when you go online to their website, it says it's only a 175 watt RMS system. Again, guys, I kind of wish they would just tell the truth and say what it really is instead of giving some peak power that isn't really based in any sort of reality whatsoever. But hey, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it's what a lot of the cheaper brands do that you see selling on eBay and stuff like that. For example, it says on the website, it says it's a 1200 watt amp. As it says here, over here it says it's a 600 watt amp. And then again, back here it says it's a 200 watt RMS amp. Yeah, guys, so what do you believe? They should just stick to the real RMS power. Again, I don't know why they do that. But hey, this is the cheapest setup like this out there, so guess you gotta roll with what you got. First look at the amp. First thing you realize, for a 200 watt amp, 200 RMS watt amp, this amp is pretty big. For example, it is bigger than this Taramp's 3000 watt trio amp. Over here on this side, you'll see we have a 30 amp fuse. That right there tells you this guy is nowhere near to 1200 watts. We have ground, remote, and of course positive. We have speaker outputs, inputs and outputs for RCAs. Of course, left and right. Of course, you can do low or high inputs, which is nice. We have gain, bass EQ, low pass, and of course subsonic. This has a logic turn on. I guess this is if you have a high input levels, it can sense. We have a crossover mode, kind of a sloppy fill-in button. Not exactly sure where it's at. Power and diagnostic. I guess that would mean protect. Let's pop this guy open and see what we're working with. A lot of space for not a whole lot of internals. Of course, I'm no expert, so y'all tell me what you think. Last but not least, let's check out the sub over here. Of course, 10-inch. It's kind of nice. It has this little lip all the way around it. Of course, the port is facing down. Again, that can be good for some situations. And y'all, this thing is pretty small. And it has the curved back, so it will fit up against your back seats. Of course, we have the gold-plated terminals. I will say, these terminals do feel all right. Let's see what we are working with. Big old fella right here. Okay, now we know why this guy was so light. Look at that little motor right there. Teeny little fella. Looks like maybe a 1.5 inch voice coil at most. Of course, single voice coil. I will say they did solder the wires on there though, so that's something. Of course, a little plastic subwoofer with a stamped steel basket and a very, very small little motor. Let's take a look at the wire. Now, 17 feet of your power wire, guys. Actually not bad. Pretty standard length. A lot of the Nitro kits will have 18 feet, but 17 feet is fine. Will be long enough for the majority of your cars. Might be a little too short, though, for some of your longer vehicles. Now, this is 8 gauge, as they say right here. Now, just to give you a comparison, now over here, guys, we have some Sky-High car audio wire. This is also 8 gauge. Just so y'all can have a comparison. Y'all can do with that what you want. That being said, guys, for a 200 watt amp, this is probably going to be just fine. Going to give a quick comparison to the RCAs as well. These will probably get the job done, but you'll see right here, one, this stuff is really thin and flimsy, bends super easy. This looks like it's solid, but normally, again, I can't verify this, but normally, guys, on these cheap ones, they just have a shielding around the little plastic part. This can easily break off. Here's some Sky High. This is some of their really cheap RCA cables. You can get a long one of these for like 12 or 15 bucks. You'll see this super thick, can barely bend it. And these, they're actually a solid piece of metal. And they have a little slit in them so that way they can compress when you put them on. But again, it's solid, so it can't just snap off. Again, for a cheap setup, this should get the job done. But just know, guys, these can't easily be bent or broken. Here's our remote wire. Once again, 17 feet. Should be plenty. Take a look at that. Guys, I have no complaints with the remote wire. You really don't need much of anything. There's actually a good deal of wire on this. I've seen some remote wires that only had a couple strands. So I'll say this guy's just fine. Next up, we have the speaker wire. I'm going to say, guys, this stuff is pretty small. Not a whole lot going on there. I would like to see this a little bit bigger. Again, just not a lot of wire, but hey, we'll test it out, see how it does. We, of course, get this guy. This actually looks just fine. We get little zip ties. That's always nice. We get these little plastic covers, of course, to slide over the wire like so. They're okay, guys, but they're not heat shrink. So they kind of slide around. Not really my favorite. We get these little fellas. Also not really my favorite. Guys, it's a pain to get these things really crimped on the wire unless you have a special tool for it. Just not the best stuff. We'll say it's a little interesting. They gave us 2 bigger ones, 2 medium-sized ones, and then we got 4 of these little guys for the speaker wire. Next up, guys, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get this wire kit ready to hook to a hookup. I'm going to be attaching the little ring terminals, attaching the fuse blocks, all that good stuff to get it ready to go, so let's get into it. And guys, I'll be using just standard, simple tools to do all of this, nothing fancy. One, I don't have fancy tools, but really just to show, guys, I'm going to guess most people buying a $120 setup probably don't have a bunch of expensive, fancy tools sitting around, so we're going to use what we got to get this done. Okay, first thing I'm noticing, they give you 4 of these guys, these small, open-ended guys. Of course, you need 2 for there, and they're plenty big for the speakers. You need 1 for your remote. Again, they're plenty big. But then for over here, they don't really give you anything. You have these guys, but that's not going to fit in there. You, of course, have the big guys for your battery terminal. You got these 2 guys that are useless, and you got nothing to run into here, so we're just going to take the wire and just shove it straight in there without having a terminal on it. Alright, get everything wired up just so y'all can see what we got. Of course, have our fuse ready to go. Got our battery terminal for the positive, battery terminal for the negative. Then got all of our inputs over here. Speaker outputs right there. Ready to rock and roll. Now for anyone new to the channel, since I do a bunch of tests for my videos, I have a big old lithium battery bank back here. This is the amp I do test with, all that good stuff. Point being means it'll be real easy to hook up this amp. We won't have to run it all the way through the car like we normally would, all the wires and stuff. But anyway, guys, yeah, let's get this hooked up so y'all can see it. All right, here it is, y'all. Got all of our wires all nice and hooked up over here to our battery bank and to our remote. Of course, got our wire hooked up to our sub. Over here, of course, got the RCA's bass knob all hooked up. All right, guys, it powered on. Of course, we have a light on the bass knob as well. Let's see how this little guy sounds. Okay, normally on my head unit, I keep it set at 10, which is pretty low, but my head unit has really nice pre-outs, so plenty of voltage going through the RCA's to, you know, the normal amps that I play. Again, I can keep the head unit itself really low. In this case, I'm having to turn it way up just to really even hear this thing. Of course, 200 watts is not much, but man, this thing is quiet. Now, of course, that gives me an issue with copyright music and all that stuff, so I went to my Def Bonds amp over here from my speakers, literally turned that one all the way off to where it's just playing through my tweeters now. But even that is so loud, that is overpowering the bass. Oh dear, guys. hear it a little bit from out here, but not much. All right, my in-the-car tests are just kind of not doing well at all. If you have a head unit that does not put out good pre-out signal, y'all, this amp is not gonna sound like much at all. It doesn't sound like much anyway, but gotta say, guys, at really low volume, if you want a little bit of extra bump, if you want a little, just to hear a little bit of bass in your system and you're on a budget, you know, this does that fine. But as soon as you turn it up any, it just really starts sounding muddy. The bass does not sound good whatsoever, and you really got to crank it to really even get it to move. The first amp I ever had was a 300 watt amp, and it was light years louder than this system here, so I don't know. Hard to say, guys. Hey, went to all the trouble to hook this thing up. Can't really even give you much to show for it, so we're going to pull this thing out. We're going to hook it up on my test bench. Going to hook up a watt meter to it and see how much power this guy puts out. Okay, guys, we have the setup over here on the test bench, of course, powered by the Big Jeff Audio. A little teeny lithium bank over here, but this thing is awesome. Also, we've got the new watt meter from Basshead Garage. This thing is super handy, guys. Watch this. This little watt meter is going to be super handy for my videos, guys. I am so stoked to have this thing. We'll do another video kind of comparing it to the SMD AM1 just to see, you know, how accurate it is compared to that. But hey, anyway, loving having it here. Now, I know this all looks like a mess. I'll clean it up, but hey, it's functional. Of course, we have different setups for different things, but we got this guy hooked up, of course, to here. So what I want to show you guys, this radio goes up to 62. I normally keep it at about 44 max. I want to show you all these controls because we have the gain all the way maxed out. Now, I'm never saying you should do that, but I'm just telling you that we do. Bass boost, we have all the way off. And we've got our little controller over here all the way maxed out as well. As you can see, we're barely putting out any power on this thing. And again, guys, I normally never have this turned up whatsoever. We'll turn up to 50, which is close to its max area. You can see that helps, but we're still nowhere close to that 200 watts. Well, it is moving though. Okay, let's turn this up to like 55. Okay, there we go. We're getting to 100 watts. This guy's moving. Sounds like it's kind of clipping though. Guys, my whole point with this is that for whatever reason, you need a really nice preamp output to go into these things. Basically, all a preamp output is on the back of your aftermarket head unit, you have an RCA output. That's your preamp output. Different ones are going to go up to different voltages, normally 2 or 3 volts. I believe this guy has a 3-volt output. So does the Pioneer in the Sequoia. Normally, guys, that's plenty. That's even overkill. For example, these tar amps, they don't like more than a 2-volt. So I have to keep the gain really low on things like this. This guy, on the other hand, totally maxing out the gain and pretty much maxing out the head units, definitely going up to its clipping point. And as the meter shows, guys, we're not even getting 100 watts out of this amp. So much for a 1200 watt max amp. anyways, guys, played y'all several songs there just to show y'all that it wasn't just that one song. It really is across the board. Not getting much more than 100 watts out of this amp, maybe 130 at most. Hey, that being said, this sub doesn't really sound that good once you get to 100 watts anyway. This sub does sound fine on really low power. It's a very, very soft sub. So again, at low power, guys, if you want just a little bit, of kind of a hum of some bass in the background, just to make your music feel a little bit more alive, this setup probably do you just fine, especially if you don't want to worry about upgrading electrical or none of that stuff. And if you got 120 bucks and that's what your budget is, this might be what you can afford, and nothing wrong with that. That being said, guys, don't get this expecting it to rattle anything in your car, expecting it to sound overly great when you push that much power. And hey, definitely don't expect to be getting 12,000 or even 6,000 or even 2,000 watts out of this thing. Just letting you know, guys, don't expect that. All right, that's going to do it for this video. Guys, once again, appreciate each and every one of you so much. Appreciate Def Bonds for sponsoring the video, and appreciate Big Jeff for sending me this little lithium battery, really helping out with all the tests that I do here. Guys, thank you all so much once again. Remember, as always, though, keep basing on.